I had always known that my father-in-law, Richard, was an attractive man, but I never thought I would see him that way. Until that night. It started subtly stolen glances across the dinner table, lingering touches that felt too long to be accidental. My husband, Ethan, was always busy, buried in work and barely noticing me anymore. I felt invisible, but Richard saw me. He always did. The way his eyes followed me when I moved, the way his voice deepened when he spoke to MIT, sent shivers down my spine. One evening, after a family gathering, everyone had left except for me and Richard. Ethan had gone to bed early, exhausted as always. I was in the kitchen, washing dishes, when I felt him behind me. His presence was intoxicating, his cologne thick in the air. "You shouldn't be the one cleaning up," Richard murmured, stepping closer. "Let me help." His hands brushed against mine as he took the plate from me, and I felt my breath hitch. My heart pounded in my chest. I turned to face him, but he was already too close. His dark eyes locked onto mine, filled with something dangerous, something forbidden. "Do you want me to stop?" he asked, his voice low and husky. I should have said yes. I should have pushed him away. But instead, I shook my head, my lips parting slightly. His hand found my waist, pulling me against him. The heat between us was unbearable, suffocating, consuming. "Richard," I whispered, but before I could say anything else, his lips were on mine. The kiss was slow, deep, and intoxicating. Every fiber of my being screamed that this was wrong, but I couldn't stop. As his hands explored my body, the world outside faded away. There was no Ethan, no guilt, only raw, undeniable desire. Somewhere deep inside, I knew this moment would change everything. But right now, I didn't care. His lips moved to my neck, his breath hot against my skin. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, but we both knew I wouldn't. Instead, I pulled him closer, giving in to the temptation I had been denying for so long. In that moment, I belonged to him, and nothing else mattered. The sound of the dishwasher humming in the background was the only thing grounding me to reality. Richard's hands moved with confidence, his touch igniting something deep inside me. My body responded instinctively, as if it had been waiting for this moment all along. His lips traced the curve of my jaw, and I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "We shouldn't be doing this," I whispered, though there was no conviction in my voice. Richard chuckled softly, his fingers grazing the small of my back. "Then tell me to stop," he murmured against my skin. I said nothing. Instead, I reached for him, pulling him impossibly closer. The way he held me, the way he touched MIT, was nothing like what I had known before. Every stolen moment felt electric, as if we were dancing on the edge of something dangerous and thrilling. His lips hovered just above mine, his breath warm. "This is madness," he muttered, though he made no move to step away. "Then let's be mad," I breathed, tilting my head up to kiss him again. The tension between us snapped, and in an instant, we were lost in each other once more. His hands gripped my hips as he lifted me onto the counter, our bodies pressed together in reckless abandon. The kitchen, the house, the entire world outside this moment ceased to exist. But just as things escalated, a sudden noise from upstairs made us both freeze. Footsteps. "Ethan!" Panic surged through me as I shoved Richard away, my breath coming in ragged gasps. His eyes were wild, his chest rising and falling rapidly. "Go," I whispered urgently. Richard hesitated for only a second before stepping back, running a hand through his hair. I grabbed a glass of water, pretending to be busy just as Ethan appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes sleepily. "What are you doing up?" he asked groggily, glancing between me and his father. My heart pounded, but I forced a smile. Just cleaning up, I said quickly, gripping the glass tightly. Ethan barely seemed to notice the tension, nodding before turning back toward the stairs. Come to bed soon, he murmured. As soon as he disappeared, Richard exhaled slowly. That was close, he muttered, his gaze burning into mine. I swallowed hard, my pulse still racing. Too close, I whispered, but even as I said it, I knew this wasn't over. Richard smirked, stepping back toward the door. We'll talk soon, he murmured before slipping out of the kitchen. Alone, I leaned against the counter, my mind a chaotic mess. What had I done? More importantly, why did I already crave more? Sleep was impossible that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Richard's touch, his lips, his breath against my skin. I lay in bed beside Ethan, staring at the ceiling, my mind tangled between guilt and desire. The next morning, I tried to act normal, but every time I met Richard's gaze across the breakfast table, my body betrayed me. His knowing smirk sent a shiver down my spine. He was enjoying the secrecy, the thrill, and so was I. Ethan sipped his coffee, oblivious. Dad, thanks for helping out with the garage today, he said. Richard glanced at me before responding. Of course, son. I'll be here all day. The word sent a jolt of anticipation through me. I'd be home too, alone. After breakfast, Ethan left for work, leaving me and Richard in a house that suddenly felt too small. I busied myself with cleaning, trying to ignore the way my heart pounded every time I heard his footsteps. But it was useless. As I turned the corner into the hallway, I nearly collided with him. Careful, he murmured, his hands steadying my waist. The contact sent fire through my veins. Richard, I whispered, unsure if it was a warning or a plea. His fingers brushed my cheek, his voice low. Tell me you don't want this. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. The truth was, I did want this. Instead of answering, I closed the distance between us, surrendering to the fire that had been building for so long. His lips claimed mine in a way that made my knees weak, his hands gripping me with a perfect balance of control and hunger. This wasn't just desire, it was something more, something dangerous. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me to the nearest room, the door clicking shut behind us. The world outside that room didn't exist. There was no guilt, no consequences, only the heat between us. I didn't know what would happen after this, but in that moment, I didn't care. The air between us was electric, charged with something forbidden and undeniable. Richard's hands roamed my body with a confidence that sent shivers down my spine. Each kiss, each touch, burned away any lingering doubt. For the first time in years, I felt truly desired, truly seen. But even in the heat of the moment, the rational part of me whispered, "This can't last." The weight of reality began creeping in as we lay tangled together, breathless. "I don't regret this," Richard murmured, his fingers tracing my collarbone. Neither did I, but regret wasn't the problem, discovery was. I sat up, running a hand through my hair. "This is dangerous, Richard." He smirked, propping himself up on one elbow. "That's what makes it so thrilling, doesn't it?" I wanted to deny it, to claim that I could stop any time. But the truth was, I was already too far gone. Before I could respond, the distant sound of a car pulling into the driveway sent a jolt of panic through me. Ethan, Richard and I locked eyes, realization hitting us both at the same time. Scrambling to gather my clothes, my heartbeat pounded in my ears. "We need to act normal," I whispered urgently, fixing my hair in the mirror. Richard buttoned his shirt, watching me with an amused glint in his eyes. "You're cute when you're panicked." "This isn't funny," I hissed, stepping away just as the front door opened. Ethan's voice rang through the house. "Dad, you here?" I forced a breath, smoothing out my dress as I stepped into the hallway. Richard followed casually, as if nothing had happened, as if my body didn't still burn from his touch. Ethan smiled when he saw me. "Hey, babe, you okay?" I swallowed, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just cleaning up." Richard smirked slightly but said nothing. I had escaped this time, but as I caught Richard's knowing gaze, one thing was clear: this wasn't over. Dinner that night felt like a test. Ethan sat across from me, casually talking about his day, completely unaware of the fire burning beneath the surface. Richard sat beside him, his demeanor perfectly composed, but every now and then his gaze would flicker toward me, sending shivers down my spine. I tried to eat, tried to focus, but my mind was spinning. Every touch, every whispered word from earlier still echoed in my head. "You're quiet tonight," Ethan noted, tilting his head. "Everything okay?" Richard's lips curled into a slight smirk as he took a sip of his wine. I forced a smile, just tired, that's all. Ethan reached for my hand across the table, his touch warm and familiar. It should have reassured me, but instead, it made my stomach twist with guilt. I glanced at Richard, who was watching me carefully, amusement flickering in his dark eyes. I quickly pulled my hand away from Ethan, pretending to adjust my napkin. The rest of the evening was agonizingly slow. Every moment felt like a ticking time bomb. Finally, as I cleared the dishes, Richard walked up behind me, his voice barely above a whisper. "You looked beautiful tonight." I tensed, gripping the plate in my hands. "Stop," I breathed. He chuckled softly. "We both know you don't want me to." Before I could respond, Ethan appeared in the doorway. "Dad, can you help me with something in the garage?" Richard didn't hesitate. "Of course, son," he said smoothly before brushing past me, his fingers barely grazing mine. As soon as they were gone, I exhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the counter. This was spiraling out of control. But the problem was, I didn't want to stop. The next morning, I woke to a message on my phone. "Richard, asterisk, meet me tonight. I'll be waiting, asterisk." My heart pounded. I knew I should delete the message. I knew I should ignore him. But as my fingers hovered over the screen, I did something else entirely. "Me asterisk where?" The reply was instant. "Richard asterisk the hotel, 9 p.m. I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. I had just made my decision. The day passed in a blur. My hands trembled as I went through the motions, chores, errands, small talk with Ethan. But my mind was elsewhere, fixated on what awaited me that night. By the time evening arrived, my nerves were frayed. My heart pounded as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my dress. I told Ethan I was meeting a friend for dinner. He kissed my forehead, completely trusting. The weight of my deception should have crushed me, but all I felt was anticipation. I arrived at the hotel just before 9 p.m. My hands trembled as I walked through the lobby, heading toward the elevator. When I reached the door to Richard's room, I hesitated. I could still turn back. I could still walk away from this. But then the door opened, and there he was. Richard stood before me, his gaze dark with desire. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he murmured. "I wasn't sure either," I admitted, stepping inside as he closed the door behind me. The air was thick with tension. We stood there for a moment, neither of us speaking, until Richard reached for me. His hands found my waist, pulling me flush against him. "No more pretending," he whispered. I didn't need convincing. The moment our lips met, everything else faded away. We lost ourselves in each other, our passion unrestrained, our need undeniable. The guilt, the risks, none of it mattered in that moment. All that mattered was the way he made me feel alive, desired, completely undone. Hours passed, the city lights casting shadows across the room as we lay tangled together. "I don't want this to end," Richard murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my skin. Neither did I, but I knew it couldn't last forever. "I should go," I whispered, but I made no move to leave. Richard tightened his hold on me, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. "Stay a little longer." And against all reason, I did. Even though deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. As I lay in Richard's arms, reality started creeping back in. This couldn't last. I reached for my phone, a missed call from Ethan. My stomach twisted with guilt. "I have to go," I whispered, untangling myself from Richard's embrace. He sighed, watching me dress. "Is this the last time?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to promise him and myself that I would stop, but I couldn't. Instead, I whispered, "I don't know." His expression softened as he traced a finger down my arm. "You'll come back," he murmured. "You always do." I said nothing. I just grabbed my purse and walked out, my heart pounding. The night air was cool, but I felt hot, breathless. My mind swirled with guilt, excitement, and something I couldn't name. By the time I got home, Ethan was asleep. I slipped into bed beside him, my body still tingling with Richard's touch. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what I had done. I told myself it had to end, that this was the last time. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet.